If there's one thing that can ruin your garden quicker than anything else, it's blisteringly hot, dry conditions. A heat wave can seriously set back or even kill your plants, and we don't want that. However, get your garden prepared with the tips I'm about to share, and yours can be the garden that thrives through even the hottest summer. It's usually reliably rainy here, but this year we've had the driest spring in over a century. Typically, we'd get this much rainfall over a typical spring, but over the last 2.5 months, we've had something more like this. So let's start with making the most efficient use of precious water, which should save a lot of time too. The first thing to do before even reaching for the watering can or hose is to check whether the soil really is dry. Now on the surface here it looks relatively dry, doesn't it? But if I just scratch beneath the surface here about 1 inch deep, there you can see it's much darker and really quite moist. So there's no point watering this just yet. I might as well save my time. The very best time to water is early in the morning before the heat of the day. This means plants can take on all that moisture so they're better able to cope with the heat. It also means that foliage has a chance to dry off during the course of the day, so it's nice and dry by nightfall. That'll really help with slugs which come out to feed at night. And also a very humid, wet foliage at night time can also be a breeding ground for disease, especially fungal diseases like blight. But if you can't water in the morning, don't worry, just get on and water whenever you can, because it's better than leaving plants struggling. Watering gives us the opportunity to inspect plants for pests, other problems, or the telltale signs of heat stress in hot weather as we move through the garden. But I'll be honest, watering doesn't half get a bit tedious if you're having to water more often than you wish because of a heat wave. Up until a few years ago, I watered most of my garden with the trusty hose pipe here. You can turn it on and off at the end here, and it's got different flow rates and patterns according to what you're watering. But the flow rate from a hose is incredibly slow, especially in a hot day when water pressure is lower because everyone's using water. So let me show you my workaround for this. It combines the convenience of a hose pipe with the speed of a watering can. What I now do is take the hose pipe, drop it into what was an empty barrel, and then fill it up to the top, taking great care, of course, that it doesn't overflow. Then once it's filled, I can take my watering can in and fill it up, and then use the watering can. And I estimate the flow rate from a watering can, even with the rows fitted on the end here, is at least 3 times as fast as the hose pipe. To make the most of each trip to and from the barrel, I double up and fill 2 watering cans. This means I can deliver 2 lots of water at once with a watering can in each hand. The ultimate solution would be automatic irrigation delivered by ground level soaker hoses or drip irrigation to get the water right where it's needed at the roots and efficiently. It's something I'm considering, but for now my 2-can dunk and deliver system works well, and I still get to check on my plants as I go. A dry spell is hard on plants, but a hot dry spell is even worse. A heat wave only hastens the speed at which water is lost from the soil through evaporation, and bone dry soil heats up even quicker, so it's a vicious cycle. One of the easiest ways of protecting against this effect is through mulching. Now, mulches are simply materials that are spread over the soil surface to suppress weeds and crucially help slow down moisture loss from the soil. The best mulches are of organic biodegradable materials such as grass clippings here, wood chips or straw, which have the bonus of rotting down over time to gradually improve the soil. The beauty of this mulch is that as it shades the soil, not only will it slow evaporation from the surface, it will also help to keep the roots cooler, which will really help in hot weather. Straw is another fantastic mulch, and especially useful if you don't have grass or the grass has simply stopped growing during a hot, dry spell. I use straw around bigger, chunkier plants like squash, tomatoes indeed, and I've had great success growing potatoes with a straw mulch. Chunkier mulches like wood chips or bark chippings, for example, are fantastic around fruit trees and shrubs, or any bigger plant for that matter. Now, because they're bigger, they rot down a lot slower, but that's great because it means I only have to apply maybe an inch thick mulch around these once a year, and that's usually in late winter. And the great thing is that as this does rot down, it adds even more organic matter to the soil, which only improves its structure and the way it holds onto moisture and drains through in wet weather. It's a win-win. Most crops prefer growing in full sun, but in very hot weather, shade is most definitely your friend. Now, if you endure typically hot, steamy summers, then grow your greens and other cool season crops like salads in the relative cool of the shade, perhaps of overhanging, taller, heat-tolerant crops, or be on hand with the shade cloth. It rarely gets baking hot here, but a couple of summers ago, we did get a good stretch of weeks where the temperatures were more what we'd associate with the tropics, and when you're not used to it, it doesn't half come as a shock. This summer, I'm a little bit more prepared with these net cloches. If it gets very hot, I can just drop them over my cool season crops like this, and then attach some sort of shade cloth over two sides, the sun facing sides, and probably hold it in place with some pegs. Now this is fleece, but just to get the idea across, I'll put it over like that and then secure it on with those pegs. Now have a think about how you might deploy shade, however temporary, in your garden, so you're on hand to deploy it, especially during the hottest part of the day, from midday to kind of mid to late afternoon. It's also worth grouping containers together so they can somewhat shade each other. This will help to raise humidity a bit, and also it will help to keep the roots cooler as well. And on that note, let me show you a few ideas for saving time watering containers. They're not as comprehensive as a full-on irrigation system, but they are a low-tech get-around that still helps me stretch the time between waterings. At the very simplest end of the scale is your friendly pot saucer, or if you haven't got one of those, just some sort of tray to collect water. Just, oh goodness me, lift up and pop your plant on the tray, and then water as normal. Now what this will do is, obviously, as the water drains out of the bottom, it'll collect in that tray and then get soaked back up by the potting mix from below. It makes for a much more efficient use of water and is a real lifesaver in hot weather. Also, sometimes when it's really dry, the potting mix kind of shrinks away from the sides of the pot, which means when you apply the water, it rushes straight away. This method means that every drop really is getting to that potting mix. The next step up is something like this terracotta watering spike. Just plunge it down into the potting mix like that, and then take a glass bottle filled with water, and then just tip it in and pop it upside down like that. Now what will happen now is that the terracotta will become saturated, and then once that happens, it'll slowly seep into the potting mix. The best bit is though, it will only do that when the potting mix is really quite dry, to balance the water across between the terracotta. So the plant is only getting water when it really needs it. You can use watering spikes for plants that are in the ground too, but I think this is an even better idea. I've made a homemade oya, and what I've done is just seal the bottom of a terracotta pot so the water can't come out of it like this. Now what I've done here is I've just buried them into the ground like that, and then I can top up the oyas with water like that, and then that'll deliver the water nice and slowly across the terracotta membrane like before, and keep these watered for a bit longer. Now to finish, I put on a saucer like this. That keeps the water a little bit cooler, slows evaporation from it, and stops any unfortunate creatures from wandering in and drowning. Keep your cool this summer and keep your plants happy too. And if you do want to plan an irrigation setup ahead of the heat of summer, then you can always use our garden planner, which has everything from connectors to all the tubing you need, so you can plan your perfect irrigation setup. If you haven't started your completely free, no obligation trial yet, put that right now by following the link or scanning the QR code over here. I'll catch you next time.